Luann Day Award, and that was established in 2017 by Purdue alumna Luann Day, the Lorne D. Bain Distinguished Professor Emerita in Public Health and Medicine at the University of Texas School of Public Health. To advance public health access, Day has served on several multinational, federal, and state boards and commissions, including the National Academy of Medicine, the National Cancer Institute, the Agency of Healthcare Research and Quality, and she received her master's and doctoral degrees as well as an honorary doctorate of social sciences degree from Purdue. We use this to recognize members of the Purdue faculty who made a major impact in the humanities and social sciences. And David Purpura is going to do that for us today. He's a professor of human development and family science in the College of Health and Human Sciences. He studies early childhood mathematics literacy by employing a novel approach by using picture books embedded with mathematical language and concepts. His work has demonstrated significant improvements in young children's math skills. This is particularly important because, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, by the fourth grade, fewer than 40% of U.S. children are performing at that grade level in math, which is really astounding. Dr. Purpura's lecture today is titled The Science of Stories, Designing Picture Books to Test Empirical Theories and Improve Children's Learning. Following the lecture, we will invite your questions. So, David, if you can come up at this time.
So I have the books up here for people to see later on. Before I start my time, I only have 15 minutes. I just want to make a few acknowledgments up front. First, if you're in my lab or work with me, please stand up. Yes, you have to stand up. Okay. So stay standing. Perry, stay standing. The work that I do is really dependent on a collaborative approach, and all of these individuals and many others who are actually out collecting data right now are really important to this work. I also want to specifically acknowledge Terry Bean, the Research Operations Administrator for the Center for Early Learning. She keeps me sane at work and has done a really fantastic job with everything that we've been doing over the last couple of years. I also wanted to acknowledge Valerie Nopik, our department head. Success for faculty is really dependent on having strong leadership, and she is a phenomenal leader, and I'm very grateful for everything. Also have to acknowledge my wife, the better Dr. Purpura. She is far smarter than I will ever be, and I'm very grateful to her for all of her support on this work, as well as all my colleagues who are here. One of the phenomenal things about being here at Purdue is colleagues, and whether they're in HDFS or in other areas, it really makes doing research fun and really enjoyable when you have good people around you who do different things and can help you think beyond just your own individual area. So thank you, and then thank you to all of you for coming this Monday morning, bright and early. I hope you all had coffee. I've had a lot, so this might not take 15 minutes, but we're going to get going now. So I'm going to talk to you about some of our work on developing children's picture books. I develop children's picture books. It's fun. It's really enjoyable. I study how young children learn math, how other factors like language and self-regulation play a role in math development, as well as the home and the school context and how those affect children's math development. And I mostly do this from the preschool through early elementary age levels. Y'all have ever heard of A&W root beer? Yeah? Okay, so they have some stores. I show this because in the US, we are bad at math. Have any of you heard the story about A&W? Okay, good, because you're going to hear it now. So back in the 90s, A&W decided we are going to compete with McDonald's. McDonald's has a quarter pounder. We are going to put out a third pounder for the same price. They did it, they advertised it. It was a total flop. Some of you can probably think about why. They did some focus groups. They found that why would I buy a third pounder when I can buy a quarter pounder for the same price? Because 4 is bigger than 3. It just makes you want to cry. But like that affected their sales. Math is important. So a couple years ago, they actually decided that they were going to rectify that wrong. They came out with the 3/9 pound burger. We joke about this. This is funny, right? Our country is bad at math. That's not funny. You're laughing at that. Like, you would never say, I'm bad at reading and laugh about that. But we hear that all the time. Oh, I'm not a math person. I'm bad at math. That's sad. And to put this in perspective, and Karen already spoiled a little bit of this data, but how many of you have heard of the leaky pipeline issue in STEM? Purdue is trying to put out the next generation of STEM ready workforce, right? But starting as early as ninth grade, we start losing kids, whether it's challenges with math, whether it's high school graduation, whether it's going to college or pursuing STEM degrees. And at each stage, we lose more and more kids. And we've done better. We've actually more than doubled in the last 20 years the number of STEM degrees that students are getting in this country. But we typically talk about this starting at ninth grade. But as Karen had mentioned, um, we start performing, fewer than 40% of kids in the US are meeting proficiency levels in math at fourth grade. In fact, in Indiana, we're doing a little better than average. We're typically average. It's not statistically different than average. Um, but only 43% of kids in fourth grade are meeting proficiency levels in math. This is a big challenge. Purdue can't do what it wants to do with putting out that next generation of STEM workforce if we can't figure that out. Because you think about when we say we're starting at ninth grade, shrink that by 60%. That's where the pipeline starts. So my work, we try to focus earlier on, much earlier on, mainly during that preschool period, to build a strong foundation in STEM. We try to figure out how we can develop ideas or develop interventions and supports for kids to learn math early on, but not just learning or doing the research side of it, but how to translate that into practice, really getting at that land grant mission of the university. We all are here at Purdue and we have a mission not just to do research, but to make an impact with our research, to translate that into the community in a way that will make human lives better. And that's what we're trying to do in those early years. Develop early math interventions that can go forward, can be easily implemented in classrooms. Teachers can't do more. Parents, you can't tell them to do more. We're already doing so much. But if we can change the materials that we are of things that we're already doing in ways that can help support children's learning, that might get us just a little bit further. So where to start? These are my boys. I have 4 kids. The boys are in the. I have the girls later. Don't worry. Um, this is a long time ago. Um, like the oldest one is 5'5". He's taller than half my lab. Um, but um, where to start with math? Math is big. It's more than just counting. It's more than just doing arithmetic. Early on, it has a strong language foundation. So we do a lot of focus on early math language. Words like more, many, most, a lot, same, similar, different, few, at least a little bit. But then each year, as kids go on, there's this huge vocabulary that kids need to know to learn math. And why is this important? So these are my girls. Um, I coach a lot of basketball. It's kind of like a part-time job that I don't get paid for. Um, I actually this past winter, 6 days a week of practices and games. Um, and I've coached my boys before. And one of the things that we learned, or that I learned, how many of you play basketball or have played or no? Okay. So if I told you to cut across the paint and stop at the block, some of you would know what I mean, right? Some of you wouldn't know what I mean. right? But if you knew those terms, you could functionally do it. What I would realize is when I would tell the kids to do that, like they would just stare at me, or they would just wander around because they didn't know the vocabulary. So now, beginning of every season, when I coach the younger kids, we walk around, I explain what the paint is. It's the area that is painted on most courts, or the block. It looks like a block, and so we go through. I teach the vocabulary, and then they can do the skill. We had the same thought with early math language. Some kids may not have the vocabulary to be successful with the skills, so we tested this out. We did a randomized control trial intervention where we randomly assigned some kids to get an intervention where we taught them the math language. The other kids, they didn't get anything. We did the intervention for 8 weeks in small groups. We pre and post tested them on math language. What we found was we had a significant effect at post-test on math language skills. And even though we didn't teach them any of the specific numeracy skills like counting or addition, subtraction, or numeral naming, they improved on those skills. Providing them with knowledge of the language gave them access to the content. So that was a key foundational piece of the work that we've done. And to do that, we had used some commercially available picture books, but we had a lot of challenges with those. They weren't the best. They weren't the best books. But why use books? Why use books to teach? Actually, this one and this one are lab babies. A couple of my former grad student postdocs let me use their kids in these pictures. But why use books? Well, one, they're things that are already being used in homes and in schools. So it's not asking somebody to do something new, it's just providing the materials to help them to do something slightly differently. Also, books can be structured so they can be consistent across each of your intervention groups. So it allows you to hold your intervention much more constant as you're doing randomized control trials. And also, you can make minor manipulations to test specific theories. Also, why use books? So, most picture books aren't exciting. I see some of you are starting to get this. Look closer. A couple more of you. Um, some books aren't exciting. Most math books are counting books that have pictures of objects and a numeral. Some are just bad. Okay, raise your hand if you get what I'm talking about right now. Okay, if you didn't raise your hand, count the bananas. But these aren't exciting. How many of you as parents have tried to read these books? You're like, by the time you get to like 6, you're like, and then there's 10. Like, and the kid's like, but what about those numbers between? Because these aren't exciting books. Um, so one of the things that we decided to do with this was develop our own picture books because we wanted books that were really engaging and were things that parents and kids would really enjoy. So we took this approach, sort of an interdisciplinary collaborative approach to developing children's picture books. We brought in some content expertise. We were the math content experts. We also had a lot of expertise in early literacy as well. Um, we worked with a professional children's book writer. How many of you have ever thought about writing a children's book? How many of you have actually done it? Okay, it's hard. We are not experts in everything. We like to think we are as academics, but we're not. So we worked with a professional author. We also worked with a professional illustrator, families, teachers, children, got lots of feedback throughout the process with them. This was really a team science approach because we don't have all the expertise and other people do. And so we wanted to bring it together to really work together and collaborate and build something that was exciting to watch or exciting to read. This is why we used a professional illustrator. This was one of my kids. You're laughing at? Actually, that was mine. My drawing. I am not an artist. This is Matt, our illustrator. Much better. Okay? We also developed the books in English and Spanish concurrently. There were a lot of things that we noticed as we were doing this. There were some words that didn't translate all that well across languages or had multiple meanings or multiple translations into Spanish depending on dialect. And so we didn't want to just have a post hoc mediocre translation into Spanish. We wanted to think about it up front. There's some words, our first book, this one, was originally going to be Too Many Marshmallows. They're packing to go on a camping trip, but marshmallow had multiple translations across Spanish dialects that weren't that well understood across dialects. And so we wanted to make sure that we picked words that had consistent translations across dialects to make it more universally accessible. There were also some other things. Originally, we were going to have two gender neutral characters. And then as we were thinking about Spanish, Spanish doesn't have gender neutral. And so had we done that, it wouldn't have had the same feeling if we did a back translation at the end. So these were things that we had to think about up front. And also you'll notice, does this work? No, the light doesn't work. But you see the colored prompts up there? One of the best strategies for building children's language skills is asking them questions as you read, more than just like yes, no questions, but more engaging questions. And as somebody who studies this, somebody who has 4 kids, it's so hard to do when you're reading to your kids to make up questions, especially at bedtime where part of your goal is to get them to go to sleep. Um, so we did the work for you. We built the questions into the books. And actually we color coded them. So each time you read, you can read a different question. And these questions get more complex across readings and across the book. So it builds in scaffolding. So we tried to design these books in ways that made them slightly different every time you read. I mean, how many of you have books that my wife and I call it going on vacation, where you've read it so many times it kind of like ends up in the back of the closet where you can't find it, and so you tell the kids it's on vacation. I think I still have a few books on vacation, and my youngest are 8. Um, but we design these in a way to build in scaffolding to help with that learning process so that it actually works well to read it multiple times over time without it getting boring for parents as well. So this was our first series, The Little Elephant's Big Adventures. Um, we designed these 3 books with support from the Heisen Simons Foundation, and then we used these in an intervention with parents. We randomly assigned parents to either get this set of books or another set of books that we designed that didn't have any math language in them. And they read the books for 4 weeks. We pre-tested them, post-tested them on math and language, as well as we delayed post-tested them 8 weeks later. We didn't tell the parents they were math books. Um, and at post-test, we had significant impacts on children's math and or numeracy and math language skills. And those were maintained 8 weeks later. So we're really excited about that. We didn't give parents a lot of training. We literally handed them the books. They read them up to 12 times total across 4 weeks. And it only took about 15 minutes, and they made multiple months worth of growth during that time period. So we also decided that, well, we wanted to expand this beyond just homes. We want to expand it to the classroom. Teachers have opportunities to do different things than parents do. You can provide teachers with substantial materials to be able to implement things beyond just reading the books. They have stations set up in their classroom with different activities. So we designed stations for the classroom that paralleled things that were happening in the books and had teachers provide guided play opportunities with the kids to build on that language in the classroom space. And we designed it where you could have both, you could pay for like a nice tent, or you could just take a sheet that had lots of paint on it and just set it up so it could fit across whatever resources the classroom had. We ran a small scale cluster randomized control trial where classrooms were randomly assigned to this intervention or a social studies condition that was pretty parallel, and did find some small positive effects at the classroom level. Right now it's really hard for people to implement things in classrooms. Teachers are leaving classrooms all the time. There's about a 50% turnover rate in preschool classrooms, but we did find that this was particularly beneficial with newer teachers in the classroom. We've also turned it into an ebook. where we just finished collecting data and we're still cleaning it. It's a bilingual ebook where it can be read to you or you can read it. We did a large-scale randomized control trial in Southern California with bilingual families. And we also created another series called the Pattern Pals, where we focus on early patterning skills. This was one I actually developed with students in the Honors College several years ago, and another set of students turned one of the books into an animated short. And then the last series is Our Mathematical World. This is more for 3rd to 5th grade, where we're really focusing on building an executive functioning strategy in with students to help them stop and pause and think through that problem-solving approach when they're in 3rd to 5th grade. And we built a lot of multiple representations of math problem solving into the books. Where are we going from here? Well, I want to develop the Science and Stories Collaborative. I've had a lot of people in other areas on campus say, I'd really like to do a children's book on this topic. And one of the things that I think that I want to do is we have the capacity, we have the knowledge of how to design these educational picture books. If we bring in other people who have that content knowledge, we could develop some really great educational books that span across a wide range of areas. In fact, one that we're already developing, I have to admit, this is AI-generated illustration. It actually was fantastic for what I wanted. But we've developed a book that how many of you as parents have ever had that argument with your child about, it's 20 degrees out, you need to put your coat on? That's thermodynamics. It is. And we can teach kids these concepts, or at least the ideas behind these concepts, through picture books. And so that's one of the things that we want to do. These are all of our series right now. We're in the process of developing a few more. I have to acknowledge my funders. We've had some great funding from federal agencies and foundations to develop these books. So thank you. We have some time for questions. Also, before we do questions, raise your hand if you have a 3 to 5-year-old. Okay, keep your hands raised. Terry, can you pass them a book? Congratulations, those of you who have 3 to 5-year-olds. Or if you have a 3 to 5-year-old grandchild, raise your hand too. Okay, great. So we can do some questions. I'm glad to see some of you already have your hands raised for questions. Okay, do you have?
Oh,
Okay, we're,
here's
here's a microphone. Oh, you have one? Okay.
um, so I loved this. But you mentioned following the results for like 8 weeks. I
Yeah.
was just wondering if you're planning to follow the results like further into the participants', educational lives.
So I don't think that interventions like this will have long-term effects because they're so small, but they need to be tied together with other effective interventions. So part of some of the next steps that we want to do are developing some additional books that hit on that next step in the mathematics learning trajectory. And so kind of building stepwise so that there's a much longer series of books that get at these broader concepts. Great
Thank you.
question. Other questions?
Uh, it's interesting that you brought up thermodynamics. It comes
Yeah.
up all of the time. And I like to kind of say if we had not used the word thermodynamics, if we just used energy,
Yeah.
then everybody would connect with it.
Yeah.
So could you say something more about the thermodynamics project? Do you already have one going or are you thinking
Yeah.
about one?
So we actually have the text of the book already. We don't have the illustrations, which is why I used AI. I thought about drawing it out or having one of my kids draw it out, but I've been gone at a conference the last week and was sick the week before. So it's basically about heat retention and going out. If you notice in that picture, their cup had a little sweater on it. They went back and forth experimenting a little bit about keeping their hot chocolate warm, and also talking about them being hot or cold. One is a camel, one is a llama. The llama has much more insulation And so that also comes up in the concepts. But I'd love to talk more and get some feedback on some of the concepts or develop other books on that topic.
I'll write to you.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Other questions? Also, Jen Dobbs-Oates was one of the co-PIs on the classroom-based intervention as well as the parent intervention. So I also wanted to acknowledge her. You didn't stand up when I had said collaborators.
Excellent. It's David, thank you. Fantastic work as always. Really excited to hear about the ebooks, especially that they're bilingual. Can you tell us a little bit more about what platform they're on and your plans for disseminating them? And will they be freely accessible? Will they be controlled for research purposes?
Yeah, so right now they're just available. We just have them designed for Kindle Fires, but we're in the contracting process with our app developer to make it also available so we can put it out into the into both both of the stores of the Apple Store as well. We're adding in 3 other books into it right now. We currently only have the first 3, but we're adding in the other 3. We're doing the Spanish and English voiceover for those other 3 books right now. We're still debating how we want to disseminate them. There's a lot of emphasis right now from Purdue on bringing things to market, and so that's something that we're thinking about. Also, if there's a nominal price, people tend to value it more, and so we're trying to figure out how can we do that. Also, how can we use that as returns to help develop more books? Actually, these 3 series are all available on Amazon right now, and we do get a small amount of royalties on them that come back into an account at Purdue that we're able to then use to develop more books. So that's how we're developing the thermodynamics book. We're trying to figure out how to make something that's sustainable, that entrepreneurship idea here. So, yeah.